The job listing had been sitting on the Galactic Labor Exchange for 3 full cycles. Nobody wanted it. Nobody even looked at it anymore. The pay was 7 times higher than normal. The medical coverage was the best in the galaxy. If a worker died, their family would receive money for the rest of their lives. Still, the application box remained empty. Floated in front of his screen inside. He was a species that looked like a glowing jellyfish with too many eyes. His job was simple. He matched workers to jobs across the galaxy. Most positions filled within hours. This one had been open for months. The posting was for 442b. Even the name made species shiver. It was what the galaxy called a death world. The air was poison. The rain was acid. The gravity was so strong that most beings could barely walk. Storms swept across the surface every few days, bringing winds that could tear apart metal. The ground shook without warning. Strange creatures lived in the shadows, and they were always hungry. The job itself was not complicated. Someone needed to maintain the atmospheric processors. These were giant machines that cleaned the air and made it possible for the mining operations to continue. The machines broke down often because the planet kept trying to destroy them. Someone had to fix them. The last team they were tough beings with hard shells covering their bodies. They could survive in places that would kill most species in seconds. They had lasted 11 days on 442b. When the rescue ship arrived, they were huddled in their bunker, refusing to come out. Their team leader, a veteran of 30 years, had simply said, "That planet hates us. It wants us dead. We could feel it." Understood. He had seen the reports. The psychological damage was always the worst part. Bodies could heal. Minds were harder to fix. Something about 442b broke people from the inside. His screen made a soft sound. A new application had arrived. Opened it without hope. Probably another mistake. Perhaps someone had clicked the wrong button. He read the species classification, and all 6 of his eyes blinked at once. Human origin Terra, solo applicant. Had heard of humans. They were a relatively new species in the galactic community. They came from a small blue planet on the edge of nowhere. They were soft. They had no claws, no shells, no natural weapons. They could not see in the dark. They could not breathe underwater. They needed to eat constantly and sleep for hours every day. On paper, they were one of the weakest species in known space. And yet they kept showing up in strange places. Pulled up the applicant's file. The human's name was Park. He was 34 years old. He had worked as a ship mechanic for 6 years. Before that, he had maintained fishing vessels on his home planet. His qualifications were acceptable but not exceptional. There was nothing in his file that explained why he would apply for a job that had broken beings much stronger than him. Sent a message requesting a video interview. The response came within the hour. The human appeared on his screen. He had dark hair, a round face, and calm eyes. He was sitting in what looked like a small room on a transit station. Behind him could see a bed, a bag, and a thermos of some brown liquid. Park asked, "Yes, you can call me. I am Senior Coordinator for the Galactic Labor Exchange. I received your application for the 442b maintenance position." "That is correct." Paused. He had conducted thousands of interviews. He knew how to read beings. Most applicants for dangerous jobs showed signs of desperation or bravado. They needed the money badly, or they wanted to prove something. This human showed neither. He simply sat there waiting. "You understand what this job involves?" asked. "I read the posting." "The posting does not describe everything. 442b is classified as a Category 9 death world. The survival rate for maintenance workers is very low. The last team evacuated after 11 days. The team before them lasted 8. 1 worker died." Nodded slowly. "What killed him?" "A creature called a stalker. It is an apex predator, very fast, very aggressive." "Are they smart?" Found the question strange. "They are animals, dangerous animals." Animals can be smart, said. I was just curious. There was silence, tried again. The previous team described the posting as, and I quote, actively hostile to conscious existence. They reported constant psychological distress, the feeling that the planet itself wanted them dead. Several needed extensive mental health treatment after evacuation. Picked up his thermos and took a drink of the brown liquid. Sounds rough. It is. This is not a normal job. I want to make sure you understand that. The human set down his thermos. For the first time, something like a smile crossed his face. It was small and tired, but it was real. My grandfather worked in the mines, he said. Coal mines, deep underground. The air was bad. The tunnels collapsed sometimes. His friends died next to him. He did that for 30 years. He paused. My father worked construction, high buildings, dangerous equipment, bad safety rules. He fell once and broke his back. He went back to work 2 months later because we needed the money. Listened. He did not understand where this was going. I worked on fishing boats, continued. In the cold waters, storms would come without warning. The waves were taller than buildings. Every year boats went down, people drowned. We kept fishing because that was the job. He shrugged. This posting pays well. The machines need fixing. I know how to fix machines. The rest is just weather. The rest is a death world. Everything is a death world if you look at it long enough. At least this one is honest about it. Did not know how to respond. In his long career, he had never met anyone quite like this human. There was no arrogance in his voice, no false courage. He spoke about death worlds the way other beings spoke about traffic or bad food. It was just another thing to deal with. Very well, said finally. I will process your application. You will receive departure information within 1 day. I strongly suggest you reconsider. I appreciate your concern, said. I will see you in the reports. The screen went dark, floated in silence for a long moment. Then he began typing the approval forms. He had a strange feeling that this time would be different. He could not explain why. The human was small and soft and should have been terrified. But those calm eyes stayed in his memory long after the call ended. The shuttle shook hard as it dropped through the atmosphere. The pilot, a four-armed named, gripped his controls and muttered prayers to gods had never heard of. Outside the windows, the sky burned in colors that did not exist on Earth. Green and orange and something close to purple, all swirling together like angry paint. 30 seconds to landing, announced. His voice was tight. I am not staying on the surface. You have 1 minute to exit with your gear, then I leave. Understood, said. He was already strapped in, his environmental suit sealed, his helmet on. His duffel bag sat between his feet. It contained clothes, tools, spare parts, and 20 packets of instant, the important things. The shuttle hit the ground hard, felt his teeth rattle. Through the window, he could see the surface of 442B for the first time. It looked like someone had taken all the worst places on Earth and mixed them together, then added poison. The ground was dark gray rock, cracked and broken. Steam rose from vents in the surface. In the distance, mountains rose against the burning sky, their peaks hidden by clouds that flickered with lightning. The air outside was thick with particles that made everything look slightly blurred. Go said, now please. Grabbed his bag and moved to the exit. The door opened and the planet hit him like a wall. Even through his suit, he could feel the gravity pulling at him. It was like carrying an extra person on his back. His first step off the shuttle was heavy and awkward. He turned to wave at, but the shuttle was already rising. Within seconds, it was a bright dot against the dark sky. Then it was gone. Stood alone on the surface of a death world. He took a deep breath. His suit's air was clean and slightly cool. The heads-up display in his helmet showed temperature, radiation levels, atmospheric composition, and a dozen other numbers that all said the same thing. Everything outside wanted to kill him. He checked his navigation. Station 7 was 4 kilometers away. A long walk in this gravity, but not impossible. He started moving. The landscape was empty and strange. Rocks that looked like frozen waves. Pools of liquid that bubbled and steamed. Plants that were not really plants, more like crystals that grew in twisted shapes. Nothing moved except the steam and the distant lightning. Pulled up his music player and selected a song. It was old, something his grandmother used to sing when she was cooking. The melody was simple and warm. It filled his helmet and made the alien world feel a little less alien. He walked for an hour. His legs began to burn from the gravity. His shoulders ached from the weight of his bag, but he kept moving one step at a time the way his grandfather had taught him. Big jobs are just small jobs stacked together, the old man used to say. Do the small job in front of you, then do the next one. Keep going until you are done. Station 7 appeared on the horizon. It was a squat metal building, half buried in rock. Solar panels and atmospheric sensors covered its roof. A tall chimney released processed air into the sky. Even from a distance could see the damage. Panels were missing. Scorch marks covered one wall. The main door hung at an angle. He approached carefully. His scanner showed no life signs inside, but the readings were unreliable on this planet. Too much interference. The door opened with a grinding sound. Inside, the station was dark. Emergency lights flickered on as entered, casting red shadows across the room. The damage was worse than he expected. The main processing unit was half melted. Control panels had been torn apart. Wires hung from the ceiling like dead vines. In one corner, something had built a nest out of salvaged materials. Pieces of metal, cables, fragments of what might have been a chair. Studied the nest. It was large. Whatever built it was not small. A sound came from the shadows. A clicking noise like stones being tapped together. Turned slowly. His helmet light swept across the room and found a shape in the corner. It was big, almost as tall as him, with a body like a lobster and legs like a spider. Its shell was dark red, almost black. Two large eyes reflected his light. Mandibles clicked together as it watched him. A stalker, the creature that had killed a maintenance worker. Did not move. He did not reach for any weapon. He simply stood there, letting the creature see him. "Hello," he said quietly. "I am not here to bother you. I just need to fix the machines." The stalker clicked again. It shifted its weight and could see how fast it could move if it wanted to. Those legs were built for speed. Those mandibles could cut through his suit like paper. But the creature did not attack. It watched him with those strange eyes clicking softly. Remembered what he had asked. Are they smart? He thought he had his answer now. This was not a mindless beast. It was thinking, deciding. He slowly reached into his bag and pulled out a ration bar. Moving carefully, he tossed it toward the nest. The stalker's eyes followed the bar. One leg reached out and pulled it closer. "A gift," said, "for letting me work in your home." He turned his back on the creature. It was a risk. His grandmother would have called him foolish, but something told him it was the right thing to do. He walked to the main processing unit and began his inspection. Behind him, he heard the stalker moving. His heart beat fast in his chest, but the clicking sounds grew quieter. When he finally looked back, the creature had retreated to its nest. It was eating the ration bar. Smiled inside his helmet. Then he pulled out his tools and got to work. The processing unit needed new filters, new wiring, and a complete restart of its software. The control panels had to be rebuilt from scratch. It would take days, maybe weeks, but had time. He had patience. And now it seemed he had a neighbor. He worked through the night cycle. The stalker watched him from its nest, clicking occasionally. When took a break to eat his own meal, he tossed another ration bar toward the corner. By the time the sky began to lighten outside, he had the basic systems running again. Clean air flowed through the station. The lights worked properly. The heating unit hummed quietly. Sat down against the wall and closed his eyes. His body was exhausted. but inside he felt something close to peace. This was not so different from the fishing boats, not so different from the cold nights on the ocean, with storms on the horizon and work to be done. The planet was harsh. The creatures were strange, but the job was still the job. He fell asleep with the sound of clicking in the background. When he woke, the stalker was still there, still watching, but it did not seem hostile anymore. It seemed curious. Got up, stretched his aching muscles, and went back to work. The report from 442B made no sense. Read it 3 times, certain there was an error. But the data was clear. Station 7 was operational. Station 4 was operational. Station 12 was showing activity. One human worker had done in 3 weeks what entire teams had failed to do in months. The Galactic Labor Exchange sent an observer. Her name was, and she was one of only a few humans working in the xenobiology division. She was 31 years old, highly educated, and extremely good at her job. Her specialty was studying how different species adapted to hostile environments. When the request came to observe the 442B situation, she volunteered immediately. She had read about Park, a simple maintenance worker with no special training, no genetic modifications, no military background, just a man with a toolkit who had somehow survived on a planet that ate stronger beings for breakfast. Wanted to understand how. Her shuttle landed at Station 7 during what passed for a calm period. The acid rain had stopped. The winds were merely strong instead of deadly. The gravity still tried to push her into the ground, but her suit compensated well enough. She found outside Station 12, sitting on a rock during a lightning storm. He was eating noodles. The sky above them cracked with electricity. Purple light flashed across the horizon. The ground trembled with distant thunder, and this man sat there with a container of, slurping peacefully. "You are supposed to be inside during electrical events," said, checking her safety protocols. Looked up at her. His face was calm behind his helmet. "The suit is grounded, and the view is good from here." Looked at the view. Crystallized methane plains stretched to the horizon, glittering when the lightning struck. Strange rock formations rose like fingers pointing at the angry sky. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. "May I sit?" she asked. "Please," he gestured to a nearby rock. "Want some? I brought extra." She sat down. He handed her a self-heating container. The noodles inside were simple, nothing special, but eating them on the surface of a death world felt somehow significant. "I am," she said. "The exchange sent me to observe your work. I figured, not many visitors out here. They want to understand how you are surviving. Every other team reported extreme psychological distress. You have sent no complaints, no requests for evacuation. Your medical reports show no signs of mental strain." "Ate more noodles. There is nothing wrong with me, if that is what you are asking." "That is exactly what I am asking. How is there nothing wrong with you?" He was quiet for a moment. The lightning flashed again, closer this time. Felt her heart jump but did not react at all. "What do you know about my planet?" he asked. "Earth Class M world, oxygen atmosphere, liquid water, considered relatively safe by galactic standards." Laughed softly. "Relatively safe, I like that." He set down his container. "Earth has volcanoes that can bury cities, earthquakes that kill millions, oceans that swallow ships without warning, diseases that spread through the air, animals that hunt us for food, whether that freezes people solid or burns them alive." He pointed at the sky. "This is just weather, dangerous weather, yes, but I have seen typhoons that pulled houses into the sea. I have seen ice storms that killed power for weeks. My people have been surviving terrible things for thousands and thousands of years." Listened, she was beginning to understand. "The other species," she said slowly, "they come from controlled environments, stable climates, predictable conditions. They evolved in safe places. And we did not. picked up his noodles again. Humans evolved running from predators, starving through winters, watching our children die from sickness. We learned that the world is not fair. It does not care about us. It will kill us if we give it the chance. He shrugged. So we stopped expecting it to be nice. We just learned to keep going. But the psychological reports from other teams describe something more. They felt the planet was actively hostile, like it was aware of them, hating them. Maybe it is, maybe it does, finished his meal. So what? My first boss hated me. My landlord hated me. The ocean hated every sailor who ever floated on it. You do not need something to love you. You just need to do your job and stay alive long enough to go home. Sat with that thought. It was so simple, so direct, and yet it explained everything. Other species experienced hostile environments as existential threats. The hostility felt personal. It challenged their right to exist. They fought against it, resented it, and eventually broke under the weight. Humans had never expected the universe to be kind. They had no illusions to shatter. What about the stalkers? She asked. The previous teams were terrified of them. One worker was killed. Nodded. They are dangerous, fast, strong, good hunters. He paused. But they are just animals doing animal things. They are not evil. They are just trying to survive, same as me. You do not fear them. I respect them. There is a difference. He stood up and stretched. Come, I will show you. They walked to Station 7. The gravity made every step an effort, but moved with the ease of someone who had adapted. Inside the station, saw something that made her stop. A stalker was curled in the corner. It was massive, dark red, with mandibles that could cut through metal, and it was sleeping. This is my neighbor, said quietly. I call her grandmother because she reminds me of my grandmother, always watching, always judging, pretending to sleep when guests come over. As if hearing its name, the stalker opened one eye. It looked at. She felt her body go cold. Every instinct told her to run. The stalker clicked once, then closed its eye again. She knows you are with me, explained. You are safe. Hal whispered, how did you do this? I gave her food. I did not threaten her home. I treated her like a neighbor instead of a monster. He moved to his workstation and began checking readouts. Most problems can be solved this way, with patience, with respect, with time. Watched the sleeping creature. She watched work. She thought about everything she had learned. Other species saw death worlds as enemies. Humans saw them as neighbors. Difficult neighbors, dangerous neighbors, but neighbors nonetheless. And neighbors could learn to live together. She began typing her preliminary report. The exchange would want to know everything, but she was not sure she could explain it in a way they would understand. Some things had to be lived to be believed. She looked out the window at the alien sky, still crackling with lightning. Then she looked at, calmly fixing a broken circuit. For the first time, she understood why humans had survived so long in such a dangerous galaxy. They simply refused to see it as dangerous. They saw it as home. The warning came too late. Was reviewing sensor data when the first alarm sounded. Red lights filled Station 3. The computer voice, calm and mechanical, announced words that made her blood freeze. Approaching, Category Extreme. All personnel seek immediate shelter. Communication blackout expected. Estimated duration unknown. She ran to the window. The horizon had changed. What had been distant storms was now a wall of darkness moving toward them. Lightning did not flash inside it. Lightning lived inside it, constant and terrible. The wall stretched from ground to sky, eating everything in its path. Appeared beside her. He had been repairing a water recycler in the back room. His face was serious but not panicked. How long? He asked. The sensors say 20 minutes, maybe less. Station 3 will not hold. The outer walls are damaged. He was already moving, grabbing his toolkit, checking his suit. We need to reach Station 1. It has the emergency bunker. Pulled up the map on her tablet. The distance was manageable, the route was not. "The path goes through the breeding grounds," she said. Her voice shook slightly. "The stalker breeding grounds. During storms they become aggressive, protective of their young." "I know. A whole pack of them, not one sleeping grandmother. Dozens, maybe hundreds, stressed, frightened, ready to kill anything that threatens their nests." He sealed his helmet. "Then we move fast and quiet, and we hope they remember me." They had no other choice. The first 10 minutes were almost peaceful. They ran between rock formations, using the terrain as cover. The wind was picking up, pushing against them with growing strength. Led the way, reading his sensor display, finding the safest path. Then the arrived. It hit them like a physical blow. Stumbled and would have fallen if had not grabbed her arm. The wind screamed in her ears, even through her helmet. Visibility dropped to nothing. She could barely see 3 steps ahead of her. "Hold my hand," he shouted over the noise. "Do not let go." She grabbed his hand and held on with all her strength. They pushed forward. Every step was a battle against the wind. The ground trembled beneath them. Acid rain began to fall, hissing against their suits. The outside temperature display on his helmet climbed higher and higher. Her suit integrity showed 92%, then 88, then 85. "How much further?" she yelled. 1 kilometer, maybe less." "Too far, much too far." The ground ahead of them moved. At first, thought it was an earthquake. Then she realized the truth. It was not the ground moving. It was creatures. Hundreds of stalkers emerging from underground burrows, climbing over each other in panic and confusion. They were surrounded. Stopped, through the swirling acid and the howling wind, could see shapes in every direction. Dark red shells, clicking mandibles, eyes that glowed faintly in the darkness. The stalkers were everywhere and they were afraid. A frightened animal was the most dangerous kind. "What do we do?" whispered. Her voice barely carried over the storm. Was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that made no sense. He let go of her hand. He stepped forward toward the largest stalker he could see, and he bowed. Not a quick bow, a deep, formal bow. The kind had seen at funerals and ceremonies. The kind that showed complete respect, complete submission. The large stalker stopped moving. Its mandibles clicked rapidly. Around them, other stalkers paused in their panic. They were watching. Held the bow for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15. Slowly he straightened. He looked at the large stalker with calm eyes. He did not run. He did not show fear. He simply waited. The stalker clicked once, twice. Then it turned and began moving away from them. As it went, other stalkers followed. A path opened through the swarm. "Walk slowly," said quietly. "Do not run. Do not look at them directly. We are guests here. Act like it." They walked. His legs shook with every step. Stalkers passed within arm's reach, their hard shells brushing against the storm wind. She could smell them even through her suit filters, something sharp and alien. But none of them attacked. They reached the edge of the breeding ground. The path to Station 1 was clear. Took her hand again and they ran. The bunker door was old and heavy. Had to force it open with a metal bar. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. Emergency power flickered on as they sealed the door behind them. Outside they raged. Inside there was silence. Sat against the wall. Her suit was at 63% integrity. Another 10 minutes in the storm and it would have failed. She would have died. "How?" she asked. Her voice was hoarse. "How did you know they would let us pass?" Sat down across from her. He removed his helmet. His face was tired but calm. "I did not know, not for certain." "Then why did you bow? Why not run? Why not fight?" He thought about the question. "When I was young, my father took me to visit my grandmother in the countryside. She had a dog, a big, mean dog that bit everyone who came near. Everyone was afraid of it." He paused, but my grandmother was not afraid. She would walk right up to it, speak softly, and it would lie down at her feet. I asked her how she did it. She said the dog was afraid too. It bit people because it expected them to hurt it, but she never hurt it. She never yelled at it. She just treated it with kindness every day until it understood that she was not a threat. He looked at, the stalkers are afraid. The storm terrifies them. They protect their young because they expect danger from everything. But I have lived near them for weeks. I have given them food. I have respected their spaces. They know my smell. They know I am not a predator. So the bow. The bow was to remind them, to show I was not a threat, not challenging them, not afraid of them, just asking for passage. He smiled slightly. It was a risk, but life is full of risks. The only choice is how you face them. Looked at this strange, calm man. He had just walked through a swarm of apex predators during a planet-killing storm, and he talked about it like it was nothing special. You should have been terrified, she said. I was terrified. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. But you did not show it. Showing it would not have helped. Fear is useful when it makes you careful. It is useless when it makes you stupid. My grandfather taught me that. The storm continued outside. They could hear it pounding against the bunker walls, but inside they were safe. Pulled out a ration bar and offered her half. The storm will pass, he said. They always do. We wait here, we stay calm, and when it is over, we go back to work. Took the ration bar. It tasted like nothing, but it was the best meal she had ever eaten. She thought about her report. How could she explain this to the exchange? How could she describe what she had just witnessed? A human had walked through death with nothing but respect and patience, and death had let him pass. Maybe that was all she needed to say. The storm lasted 18 hours, when it finally passed and emerged from the bunker to find a changed landscape. Rock formations had been stripped smooth. New craters dotted the ground. The path they had taken was no longer recognizable. But Station 1 still stood. The atmospheric processors still hummed. The work continued. Communication with orbit was restored within the hour. The rescue team that arrived found running diagnostics on the backup power systems while compiled her notes. They had expected bodies. They had expected broken equipment and terrified survivors. Instead, they found 2 humans drinking instant coffee and discussing maintenance schedules. The rescue team leader, with medals on his uniform, simply stared. You survived, he said, on the surface. We found shelter, replied. The bunker held. But the stalker breeding grounds, our sensors showed you passed right through them. We did. The waited for more explanation. None came. Simply returned to his diagnostics, as if walking through a swarm of apex predators was not worth discussing. 3 months later, submitted her final report to the Galactic Labor Exchange. It was 200 pages long. It contained biological data, psychological analysis, and detailed observations. But the conclusion was simple. Humans were different. Not stronger, not smarter, not better equipped, just different. Other species saw hostile environments as problems to be solved, challenges to be overcome, enemies to be defeated. They poured energy into fighting against the conditions, and when the conditions proved stronger, they broke. Humans did not fight against conditions. They adapted to them. They did not expect the universe to be kind, so they were not surprised when it was cruel. They did not believe they deserved safety, so they were not offended when they found danger. They treated hardship as simply a feature of existence, as normal as breathing or eating or sleeping. This was not courage in the traditional sense. It was something deeper, something built into them over millions of years of evolution. They had been shaped by a planet that tried to kill them in 1,000 different ways. They had survived ice ages and plagues and predators and wars. They had learned, deep in their bones, that survival was not guaranteed. And so they never expected it to be. The report ended with a recommendation. For Death World maintenance positions, human workers should be preferred. Not because they were immune to danger, but because they did not dread it. They simply got on with the job. The Galactic Labor Exchange implemented the recommendation within one cycle. A new classification appeared on maintenance postings, human preferred. Park became something of a legend in certain circles. Other species told stories about the soft, fragile human who had tamed a death world with patience and ration bars. Most of them thought the stories were exaggerated. Some thought they were completely made up. Did not care about stories, he cared about his work. He stayed on 442B for 6 standard years. In that time, he repaired every station on the planet. He trained 14 other human workers who came to join the operation. He established what he called protocols for working near stalker territory, simple rules about respect and food and slow movements. Not a single trained worker was killed by stalkers during his time. A few were injured. Accidents happened. But the creatures learned to tolerate human presence just as grandmother had learned to tolerate. When he finally retired, the company offered him a position on the board. He declined. They offered him a consulting role. He declined that too. "I am tired," he told, who had kept in touch over the years. "I want to go home." Home was a small apartment in a coastal city on Earth. It was nothing fancy. A bed, a kitchen, a window that looked out at the ocean, filled it with books and plants and a coffee maker that he used every morning. His neighbors did not know he was famous. They thought he was just a retired mechanic who had worked off-world for a while. He liked it that way. Fame was uncomfortable. Normal life was better. Sometimes young workers would contact him, asking for advice. They had been assigned to death worlds and they were afraid. They wanted to know his secret. How did he survive? How did he stay calm? How did he face each day on a planet that wanted to kill him? His answer was always the same. Bring good coffee, respect the wildlife, fix what is broken, everything else is just weather. Most of them did not understand. They expected something more, some secret technique, some hidden wisdom. They did not realize that the wisdom was in the simplicity. Do the job in front of you. Do not fight what you cannot change. Treat dangerous things with respect instead of fear. Keep going until you are done. It was not complicated, it was just hard. Years later, wrote a book about her experiences on 442B. It became required reading at the Galactic Labor Exchange. New workers studied it before accepting Death World postings. They learned about the human approach to hostile environments. They learned that dread was optional. She dedicated the book to. He did not read it. He said he already knew what happened. On quiet evenings, he would sit by his window and watch the ocean. Sometimes storms came, bringing rain and wind and waves that crashed against the shore. Other species might have found it frightening. Found it peaceful. After all, it was just weather, and weather was something he understood. He died in his sleep at the age of 93. His funeral was small. A few old friends, some former, came, older now but still sharp-eyed. She read a short speech about his life. But the thing people remembered most was not the speech. It was the message had left to be read at the service. He had written it years before, knowing this day would come. Do not be sad. Death is just another job and I am ready for it. I have fixed what I could fix. I have lived as long as I needed to. Now it is someone else's turn. Take care of each other. Take care of the work. And do not forget to bring good coffee wherever you go. The crowd laughed through their tears. It was such a thing to say. Somewhere across the galaxy, on a hostile world where acid rain fell and strange creatures clicked in the shadows, a maintenance worker opened a new container of instant coffee. She was human, trained by people who had been trained by. She looked out at the alien landscape and smiled. It was just weather, and weather was something she understood. The work continued. It always would.